All right, well, good evening to all of you out there. Before we begin tonight's council meeting, I was given this prayer for this evening, so you'll be patient with me here. Dear Lord, we continue to acknowledge and pray for all the essential workers who through these past months have selfishly remained on the front lines for the benefit of others. For all those in the medical profession, the EMTs, the cleaning staffs, and the food providers, and also for the first responders, including the police officers and firemen, and for those working in our grocery stores and other essential places that provide the necessities, and for the truck drivers delivering our food and other items to our businesses. And we pray that you guide government and health officials who are charged with making decisions for the course of action to follow. We ask this in your name. Amen. Council will now come to order, and we will cite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With liberty and justice for all.
All right, we need to go with roll call.
Mr. Paul,
Here.
Mr. Petrella,
Here.
Mr. Timmons,
Here.
Mr. Villamagna,
Here.
Mrs. Onyabuile,
Present.
Mr. Dressel,
Here.
Mrs. Hahn.
Here.
All members of council are present and accounted for. I will ask Mrs. Hahn for the minutes of May 5, 2020.
Yes. I move that we approve the minutes of May 5, 2020 as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes of May 5, 2020 be accepted by roll call.
Mr. Paul,
Aye.
Mr. Petrella,
Aye.
Mr. Timmons,
Aye.
Mr. Villamagna,
Aye.
Mrs. Onyabuile,
Yes.
Mr. Dressel,
Aye.
Mrs. Hahn.
Aye.
So moved. Minutes of May 5, 2020 are accepted as written. Now move on to petitions and communications this evening, Madam Clerk.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll now move on to ordinances and resolutions before City Council this evening. Starting off with resolution number 2020-26 by council as a whole.
Resolution number 2020-26. A resolution authorizing and directing the Parks and Recreation Director and/or the City Manager to enter into a fund agreement with the Community Foundation for the Ohio Valley Incorporated.
You heard the reading of resolution number 2020-26. Is there anyone wishing to speak on it? Please state your name. We have a question?
You need a motion.
Question.
A roll call?
Mr. Paul,
Aye.
Mr. Petrella,
Aye.
Mr. Timmons,
Aye.
Mr. Villamagna,
Aye.
Mrs. Onyabuile,
Yes.
Mr. Dressel,
Aye.
Mrs. Hahn.
Aye.
So moved. Resolution 2020-26 is duly adopted. We'll now move on to resolution number 2020-27 by council as a whole.
Resolution number 2020-27. A resolution declaring May 10th through the 16th, 2020 as National Hospital Week.
We have a motion to accept.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. I make a motion we adopt resolution 2020-27 by roll call. Second. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the resolution 2020-27 be accepted by roll call. Roll call.
Mr. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Petrella?
Aye.
Mr. Timmons?
Aye.
Mr. Villamagna?
Aye.
Mrs. Onyebuile?
Yes.
Mr. Dressel?
Aye.
Mrs. Hahn?
Aye.
So moved. Ordinance, I'm sorry, so moved. Resolutions number 2020-27 is duly adopted. That
Mayor, may I add something?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, Your Honor. This is National Hospital Week, and I would like to thank all the employees of Trinity Health System who work hard to protect the health and well-being of our community. These dedicated workers, healthcare providers, are putting themselves at risk daily, and I'd like to thank them for that, Your Honor.
Thank you. Well said, thank you. All right, that concludes ordinances and resolutions before City Council this evening. We'll now move on to reports from our standing committees, starting off with Mr. Paul.
Yes, Your Honor. I have something that would be under the Safety Committee as of now, but down the road it would probably be Safety and Finance. As you know, we were discussing earlier in the year the EMS system. I've been inundated with some, not complaints, but questions by many citizens, and I would like to address this tonight, and I think we need to move forward. All right, so I have four choices that I would like to provide to council, and I don't know if you want to decide upon it tonight, or we can decide upon it next week, which would be the 19th. Either way you want to do it, we can go around the table and find out. If we would go tonight, I would make a motion then. But okay, so here's what I'd like to present to the council. All right, so today, I was discussing with several individuals, and our first option would be to provide money to ASI. Now, if we provide money to ASI, that would probably be, I don't know the figure, we've never received any money, or not for money, but any kind of estimates back from the ASI. But just roundabout figure, we'll say $200,000 a year. That would be a year. And the second option would be for us to start a co-op program where we would hire for individuals, and they would solely work for ASI. We would provide the people, we would provide the hospitalization, but ASI would collect the billing, okay? Our third option would be to pay an outside company to assist us or provide service, EMS service. That could be, I think Carrollton has an ambulance service. It still could be ASI. It could be Wintersville. Fund this ambulance service. But it all, again, would come down to us providing that group or provider with money. Now, our fourth option would be to have our fire department start a fire-based EMS system, starting with one ambulance. We would post that ambulance, if anywhere, will be out the west end. The reason being because that's where we have the most room. We would start with one ambulance, but we would probably buy two, but we're not going to buy two brand new ones. We would probably buy two used ambulances, and you can get them at a very nice price. The reason why I'm suggesting get two, if one would go down, we would still have another one as a backup. And further down the road, if we would like to go further, if we think this is going to be feasible to us, we could, buy another ambulance or buy something brand new. Okay. Using this, what would we do? Well, here's one of the reasons why I think this would be our best option. January alone, we had 47 EMS calls. February, we had 85 EMS calls. March, we had 67. April, we had 57. May, as of the 11th, we had 23. Every time we have that, so that's a total of 278 EMS calls. And every time we, the city of Steubenville, have an EMS call in our city, we respond to that. Now, that says a fire truck and 3 firemen to that EMS call. Now, sometimes the EMS call could be close to 30 minutes until we get someone to respond to this. When you respond to this, our fire truck has to sit there. So now you take 1 fire truck out of the equation. So now we're down to 2. We have a total of 3 that can respond to a fire, but now we're down to 2. So I'm going to tell you another scenario. If we would have a, let me see, I got notes here. I've got notes everywhere. So if we would respond to a call, we provide aid, we render comfort until EMS arrives. That can, they can no longer, or they can provide no transportation to stay at sea until an ambulance arrives. So our fire truck sits there until an ambulance provider shows up. So we have a fire truck, as I said, out of the equation. That could be 5 minutes, it could be 45 minutes. And like I said, it's 3 firefighters taken out of our equation. So if we had an account, or if we had an accident on Route 7 at the bottom of University, and there was a person in cardiac arrest, right now we have 2 engines out of the equation. So now we're down to 1 fire truck. And this happens every time. So I am not saying that we are going to compete with ASI. I'm just saying, really, there's nothing to compete with because some of the times they're not even showing up. And we're sitting there. I can give you a scenario. We have Dillondale shows up, Weirville shows up, Mingo shows up, and recently on Bellevue Boulevard, ASI is right down the street, not far. We had Unionport EMS respond to a call on Bellevue Boulevard, and it was 45 minutes before we could get someone to respond to that call. So, and this comes from Unionport, which is up in Bellevue there. So, I think that this, as I said, this would probably be our best option to go. You guys can ask questions. You can call ASI. You can ask. You want. You can call them. What I'm also. What's the other thing I want to? Oh, as of yesterday, when I spoke with Chief Capaldi, in our email that we received from Melissa, stating the department head's report, there was 24 applicants for the fire test. Well, as of yesterday, when it was closed, we have 35 applicants for the fire test. That is, as of yesterday, 35. That test will be taken on June 4th. Out of those 35, we have 8 that are firemen 2 and are not paramedic trades, but they are trained to assist in some way. We have 1 applicant that is a paramedic already. I'm not saying we don't know if we're going to hire him or not, but out of 35, I mean, that's a good start in the right direction. Now, why I ask everybody to come up with a solution or come up with what you like here, we need to move forward because of the funding. I know right now we have a hold on a lot of things, but we can start discussing the way to provide the money for us to, or whoever we're going to have, provide us EMS service. I don't know if I explained that well enough. I guess I could answer questions, but I'm not as good as what the fire chief or anyone else would be. But is there anybody any questions?
Willie?
Yes, sir.
Willie, can you hear me?
Bob?
If you can, we need to, I like your idea very much. I like number 4, what you said. I think that's the way to go. I'd like to get Dave Lewis. I think we're like you said, we're going to talk about this down the road and maybe get Dave Lewis to tell us down in a couple of weeks exactly how much money we have that we can put towards this and then go from there. That's my opinion. Find out what we can put towards it and then get with Carlo for the grant part of it and see where we can go. But try to do it as fast as we can.
Right. And we know this won't be done probably not till the end of the year, if that, but we're moving forward. We need to move forward because I'm hearing more and more stories of the lack of.
Yeah, we need to get it started.
Yes.
We need to get it started.
Anybody else have anything?
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
Wayne?
Hey, Your Honor?
Yes.
Why don't we go around how we want to start out? I was first on this. I think Mr. Timmons is, Mr. Petrell is next. Mr. Petrell, you have anything?
Yeah, I think we definitely have to move on this. Pick a scenario, get pricing on it, and move. I agree 100%.
Okay. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Timmons, I think you're next.
Yeah, I like scenario 4. Our fire department taking it on, and yeah, I'm ready to go that route.
Okay. Mr. Timmons, that is Mr. Villamagna, correct? Is that how it goes?
Yes.
Yeah, I already gave you my opinion, Will, so.
Okay. All right, Bob. Thank you. Mrs. Arthur Relay. How they do that? I said that pretty good, huh?
Yeah, you're on cue. And I think we should move with option 4 as soon as possible.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
After that would be Mr. Dressel.
Yes, hi Willie. I would go with 4 as well, and that would basically give us an ambulance that they could not only drive to the scene, but they could stabilize the patient and move them to the hospital instead of waiting, right? The time could go down.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So there's a lot of positives there, and I think we're aware of some of the horror stories recently, so clearly we need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's got my support.
And even if someone says to me, well, what if you put it out West End? Well, even if you put it out West End, it's still 45-minute wait from Unionport. We're going to be there in 10 minutes at least, and we'll get you to the hospital. So
Yeah, I think 5-10 minutes anywhere, I think is fine.
Correct. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Mrs. Hahn?
Yes, I had one other suggestion. I was looking over the different possibilities of how the CDBG funding can be used, especially this additional $321,000 that's designated for COVID-19 assistance. And my suggestion would be that we look into purchasing one of those used ambulances with some of that money. Now I realize the one drawback is we'd have to document that at least 50% of the calls of that ambulance went to areas where people normally receive CDBG funding. But especially if we got 2, we could designate one of those ambulances as primarily serving in that area of the city. I don't think that would be that difficult, but we could ask the chief whether or not that was something he'd be willing to do. And if it's a used ambulance, we're not talking $150,000. It could be less than that, which still leaves us other monies from that COVID-19 fund money that's going to come to the city under CDBG. So that would be one of my encouragements. And then I'm just thrilled that there are this many applicants, which shows why our move earlier was so essential that we raised those salaries. And to know how many of them already have EMS training and even a paramedic, that's amazing. So that's very encouraging, and I would say definitely we need to move forward with this 4th option. And as soon as the fire chief could, come with us with, how might we fund this? Is it possible through the SAFER grant? Is it possible through the city equipment fund in a year? Is it possible through the CDBG COVID-19 funding?
Hang on. Wait a minute. Okay, I didn't know if I put it on mute or not. Okay. So yes, it sounds like it's unanimous. We want to go with the 4th option. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Yep. Yes. Okay. All right. provide the information, and we can move forward on establishing this EMS service.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Costa, is that good? Is that good, Costa? Can we go that route?
Yeah, that is fine. That's fine.
Okay, so we have a roll call then? Should I go that way?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, roll call that we adopt the
Option 4.
option number 4, pursuing the purchase of
Move forward.
Yeah,
Move forward with the EMS service provided by the city of Steubenville.
Yes. Roll call.
Mr. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Petrella?
Aye.
Mr. Timmons?
Aye.
Mr. Villamagna? Mr. Villamagna?
Aye.
Mrs. Onyeweele?
Yes.
Mr. Dressel?
Aye.
Mrs. Hahn?
Aye.
So moved. We move forward with option 4. And we'll have then a discussion next week about it as well.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will now move on to Mr. Petrella.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Petrella. Mr. Timmons.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Timmons. Mr. Villamagna.
Just one thing, I'd just like to report that the paving on F Lane, south of Washington State, that crew is remarkably fast. They're going through there pretty quick. They got the base coat laid down, and if weather cooperates, they should be done Thursday, hopefully. If not, if the weather doesn't hold out, they'll be done as soon as the weather breaks. But they did a nice job so far, and they're moving really quick. So that's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Villamagna. Mrs. Onyeweele.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mrs. Onyeweele. Mr. Dressel.
Two quick things. One is Willie Omega had a grant out for assistance with fire department stuff, and I think including EMS, that I did send to Chief Capaldi a couple weeks ago. You might want to check on that
Okay.
funding. And then is Jim on the call?
I'm here.
Okay. I had a request, and then Eric, I think, has something to add to it. But is it possible for us to get a small utility update next week with maybe 5 minutes on water, 5 on sewer, and on sanitation during your part of the evening?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then Eric, did you want to explain your issues so they know what to bring on the sanitation side?
Yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to bring this up in a committee meeting or how we wanted to do it, but I do still have an issue with that dumpster that's at the corner of Estelle and Oxford. I will send everybody some pictures, but what I'd like to see is I've been told there's no ordinance against having a dumpster in the street like that, so I'd like to see if we can make an ordinance or tweak it to where that's prohibited. So that's all I'd like. I don't know if we can do a committee meeting or not, Scott.
Can I make a comment on
Let's
this?
do it during the regular meeting so we can avoid being on earlier and then discuss that. And then if we come up with language that Costa thinks is appropriate, maybe we can add it, maybe we can't. We have to take into account all the streets in the whole city plus all the alleys and decide how we would word something like that.
Okay.
For that one issue. So we should look at all of it.
Jim, you want to say anything?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Mavromatis.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
This is Craig. Can I ask a question?
yes.
Eric, how long's that dumpster been there?
6 months at least.
Oh, my.
Probably longer. Probably
I don't. Okay.
But I'll
Yeah,
send the
Bobby.
pictures. I mean,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
one of my
Bobby.
fears is
Right.
if everybody starts doing that and putting it in the street. Yes, you can drive around it, but you know, I have had some complaints. So yeah, that's all. Yes, and if you want to move on, Rob, that's fine.
Okay,
Well,
Mr.
let's
Beck?
talk about it next week when we have Bob here.
Okay. All right, is that all, Mr. Dressel?
Yes, that's it.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to Mrs. Hahn.
Yes, we have a Parks and Recreation Board meeting tomorrow evening, and we've changed the location. So tomorrow night's meeting is still at 7 o'clock, but it will be in council chambers. There will be room for some of the public to be able to come in if they want to. And then, Jim, I was told you have information if someone, and some of the board members are going to call in. They're not going to be physically present. Do you have information about how someone in the public can be a part of that call?
That line they can, if the public wants to speak, they can come down and speak. That line is for the use of the board members and any of our council people. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll have a phone.
Okay, and there will be a presentation tomorrow from Flora Verstraeten Martin, who has been doing some volunteer work at Beatty Park. And now that we passed this resolution, I think Lori will present something on what this means for us to have this account at the Community Foundation, and how people might be able to contribute to individual parks where they have a real passion for it. So again, the Parks and Recreation Board will actually meet tomorrow night, but not at the clubhouse. They'll meet in council chambers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry, can you get back to Willie?
Mr. Paul?
Yes, Your Honor. Yeah, I guess you don't want me to continue speaking. I don't know. It never came back to me.
Yes.
But I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding you, Jerry. I have a couple ordinances. Well, I have several. Let's see, Your Honor. The first one is under the Finance Committee.
Okay.
Ordinance 2020-28. It's ordinance amending codified section 145.08 of the Administrative Code, and it has to do with travel expense. Okay, this is something the auditors had discussed with Mr. Lewis. The second one is an ordinance establishing the City of Steubenville's relocation policy. And hopefully, I think is Dave Lewis on the phone tonight?
Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Okay, good. Okay, let me present these, and then you can, if anybody has any questions, Dave, you can help me out here.
You got
Okay,
it.
so that was Resolution 2020-29, and it was ordinance number 2020-29, an ordinance establishing the City of Steubenville relocation policy. And the next one is ordinance number 2020-30, an ordinance establishing a written internal control policy for law enforcement trust fund accounts for the Steubenville Police Department. Okay? And let's see, 2031. Next one is ordinance number 2020-31, an ordinance repealing section 145.04 of the codified ordinance of the City of Steubenville, and that refers back to the travel allowance. Okay, come on, cooperate with me here. My Kindle's not okay. All right, so after that, next one is it's the relocation policy, and I think the final one, Dave, if I didn't get them all, let me know. The last one is the travel policy attachment, and it is 145.08, and it's travel expense, and there's some changes the auditor suggested they do as they did their audit. So, or conduct, Dave was doing, as they conducted their audit. So, I think I got everything right, Dave?
You did. Yeah, there's 3 policies that we were bringing in, as you said, from the auditor's recommendation. And then there's 1 codified ordinance change regarding residency requirements that Mr. Mastro's discussed with me. So, any questions, be happy to answer them.
I have questions on the travel policy. I'm looking through, and it's for the hotel rooms. They say the person will be reimbursed for the hotel and any incidentals. What do incidentals consist of?
It would just be the hotel. We typically would reimburse for incidentals. I think in the policy it references that the employee would use their own credit or debit card to reserve the room, and a hotel usually asks for a personal credit card in case there are incidental charges, which we typically do not reimburse for.
Okay, but the way it reads, it looks like the person would get reimbursed for incidentals. Let me see. Making their own hotel, using their personal credit card, hold the room and cover any incidental. The city will reimburse the employee the cost of the room and any parking fees charged by the hotel. If the hotel, okay.
Yes, that's your 2 items. Typically,
Okay, so.
some of the bigger hotels in Columbus do charge a parking fee in the downtown part of Columbus.
Right. Okay, so then is there a ceiling on how much a person can pay for a room and get reimbursed?
No.
If somebody could order a suite.
When you read through it a little more, it does say they should be getting a single, or they should be getting a smaller room if available. Before they would, most of our rates, like when we go to a conference, they're usually in the low hundreds. We usually get a pretty good rate overall.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
You're welcome. David?
Yes,
David? I am here. Questions. When I get email, I got these from Costa, and I got them from you, but in my computer, I got them from everybody else, but I got the header only from Costa, and I only got the header from you with no ordinance. I don't know if that's, because I know Costa was having trouble with his email, so. But anyways, my question is, I'd like to have, if there was any policy prior to what we're talking about, what it was, and what we're changing the policy to, on the 3 that were policy changers. But I don't understand the 145.04 with the residency rule. Can you tell me what we're repealing and what's going on there?
it's just an update.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry. As Dave was saying, Mr. Villamagnus, it's an update. So that ordinance, 145.04, requires that all officers and employees of the city be residents in the elector of the city. And that ordinance, there's no enactment date on it, but it's decades old. I mean, decades and decades. In 2006, the legislature passed a revised code section. I think it's 9.481, and it was a prohibition of residency requirements in municipalities. That all held up all the way up to the Supreme Court of Ohio. So we were cleaning up. It was either 2018 or 19. I can't remember. We were cleaning up the administrative code, and we cleaned up a few, and then
we were going to keep moving on. This is one that Dave and I found, and it just got kind of lost in the shuffle of things. So when we were updating these new policies, I kind of just stumbled upon it, and I just said we may as well just start cleaning up the administrative code again. So that's where that
So
is.
it was never changed, is what it was. I thought it was just never changed.
Correct. It was never changed after 2006. It just stayed on the books.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And now relocation one. For Dave Lewis, Dave, I have another question for Dave here. You said that people have to use their own credit card when they
To reserve
go
the
to
room.
Why do we do that?
Well,
Why don't we
way
use
is
the
they
city card?
cancel. Well, we only have two cards. One is the city manager's card, one is the finance director's card. We try to minimize the activity. Typically, when someone wants to travel, Jim and I would have to provide our driver's license and sign off, giving them authorization to stay in the room on what they perceive to be our card, because it's in individual names. So it's a lot simpler for them to make the reservation, put it on their card, to hold, at least hold it. There's language in that ordinance that would allow us to print a city-issued check that they could take to the hotel so that the charge doesn't actually post to their card, but at least we're asking them to hold the room on their card, and if they cancel, it's their responsibility to cancel it, the reservation with the hotel.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Seems to be-
That's all I have.
You're welcome.
Okay, is that all?
This,
I have
No,
another
this is
question.
Craig.
This is.
I got a question.
Well, who,
This
is, that,
is the relocation ordinance.
is that you, Mr. Petrella?
Yes.
Yes.
So what does,
Go ahead, Mr. Petrella.
I asked what was the relocation ordinance?
This is again recommended by the auditors that we establish a procedure for, this is if we're hiring somebody at director level or city manager level. They asked us to put something on the books to outline, what we would reimburse, and just to prevent, any large moving expenses if and when we're hiring someone at that level from, another community.
Okay, thank you.
Not an ordinance we would use. I don't think we don't really have this come up too often. It has happened, I know at least once, but it's not something that we would have come up too often.
okay. Well, that,
So my question, I have one. Under the property, under code 2981.12 and 13, what are those codes? What do they mean?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
For police holding property? Let's see, let me go to it. Not the relocation one,
You're referring to the law enforcement trust fund.
right.
Yeah, David, 2020-30.
I might have to look those up for you.
Okay.
It's an ordinance establishing a written internal control policy for law enforcement trust fund accounts for the Steubenville Police Department.
Right. The ordinance just outlines how we're going to handle the money, how the police is going to handle any money forfeitures coming
shall be disposed of per 298112 and 298113. So that means how do they dispose of it then?
I might have to get back to you on that one.
Okay, it's under custody of property, letter
I
A
think it's usually
in
like
that
an
paragraph.
That's
I
the
see.
OC code.
Yeah, if it's any value,
Right.
it's an auction.
Are we finished?
So what do they do now? Maybe I can ask that question, gives me an idea. What do they do?
It depends what the item,
I
is.
think police chief down there. Would you be able to help us with that one?
Yes, this is Jim.
What you do now?
Okay,
Dave, hold on. Go
all
ahead.
right. To answer your question, with the police, if they have vehicles and they have no longer use for it, then they are auctioned off. A lot of times they'll get vehicles that they seize for transportation of drugs. They put a request in to put it in the use. Once there's no longer a use, then it is put on the auction block, and those proceeds go back to the asset forfeiture fund. If there's firearms, they get court orders to have them destroyed, or in the case that they are a usable firearm and a proper dealer wants to take them in exchange to supply us with ammunition or goods that they have that we use to save us money, we can do that with the proper court order. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Yeah, but still, you guys are still going to tell me what 2981, 12, and 13 are, though,
All
right?
Is that from the Ohio Revised Code?
I just says Law Enforcement Trust Fund overview.
Do you have that?
It just says section 2981, 12, and 13. Ohio Revised Code.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send you a copy of the code.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that will conclude reports of our committees. We'll now move on to reports from our administrative officers, starting off with our city manager, Mr. Mavromatis.
Thank you, Mayor. Just the current update from today on the coronavirus statistics. Again, we're being sandwiched by two counties, Columbiana County with 343 cases, Belmont County with 266, and Jefferson has 56. So again, the concerns are because of the travel in between these counties, we still need to be concerned what possibilities could happen down in our own county. We are opening places up here following the governor's recommendation, which brings me up to all of council here, your thoughts. I'd like to recommend that we start having our regular councils meetings on June the 9th. But I wanted some thoughts from you. What's your thoughts on this?
Mr. Paul?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm fine with that.
Thank you. Mr. Petrella? Mr. Petrella?
I'm fine with that.
Thank you. Mr. Timmons?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I would go earlier if you guys want to, but I'm fine with whenever everybody else says.
Thank you. Mr. Villamagna?
Yeah, I'm fine with the June 9th date.
All right. Mrs. Anya Weebley?
June 9th is fine with me.
Thank you. Mr. Dressel?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm probably the only one with an issue, but I did send you guys an email suggesting maybe we hold it somewhere else so we have a little more room. I'm fine with meeting. What I'm not fine with is being within 2 feet of somebody else.
If I could, can I comment on
Yes,
that?
yes.
Mr. Dressel, prior to us opening up for council, it's probably going to be in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to have the courtroom completely sanitized. There's enough room there to spread out counsel. That's the first concern, to make sure that you are far enough apart, at least 6 feet. The other, and these
Okay,
are things, these are
I'm
things.
good then.
Okay, but these are things we can also do. Anyone that comes into that room there must be wearing a mask. Again, there are safety precautions is what they are. So again, you wouldn't have known this. We're also sanitizing our whole lobby area of the city building, the foyer, and sanitizing some other areas of the city building that outsiders have come into. But just so you know, this is good for that day. The next day, if someone walks in there and is infected and we don't know. So this is something I'm looking into. We can require anything we want to come in our building. We own it. So if it's requiring them, anyone that comes in our building must wear a mask, then they'll have a mask on. Right now, if you go to some stores, they're demanding that masks be worn or don't come in. So again, I'm just putting this out now, getting prepared to open this up, but I think it would be better all the way around once we can do this and be together again, but use the safety precautions
Okay.
that we need.
Okay, that's fine then, thank you.
Okay, sir. And I'll make sure if we go with the mask, mask will be supplied to all the council people.
Mrs. Hahn?
Yes, I'm fine with June 9th.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Can I
thank-
ask a question, Jim? It's Eric Timmons.
Yes, sir.
Will the option of calling in still be available if somebody doesn't want to come in on June 9th?
Absolutely. That, I mean, again, this has already
Okay.
been set up to do this from the statutes that have come out with this until they completely change these. And I've been a big proponent of this when you've been on vacation, something like this, but it didn't allow for that. But again, absolutely,
Yeah.
you can call in. And
Yeah, okay, good, because I think we should have that option, because I understand, I can definitely understand people not wanting to go in public, so if they have the choice, I would like to give that to anybody that doesn't want to come in, so thank you.
As long as we're under these conditions that we have to operate on, and I see no issue at all. Costa, do you with this, if they want to call from home?
I do not, because I think that legislation went until, the remote meetings went until, I'll have to double check, July, at the minimum, July 31st.
Okay.
So, yeah, we would be okay for a while. And it can be extended by the Director of Health, so we're okay at least at that point.
Okay. And just so council knows, I had to talk with the city manager from Weirton on another matter. They met the other day. All council was there in the chambers. Again, it's their call how they want to operate, but again, they've made the decision. So I want to have some adequate time so we can watch and see how our statistical data is and make sure that we clean what we have to get clean. And Judge Massio's in full support of us waiting till then, which, and again, we can use the council chambers as we see fit.
Anything else?
Let's see here, this. And Mr. Timmons, did you request a meeting next week, a committee meeting? Or was it Willie in regards to our trash pickup?
No, Jim, I thought maybe Eric wants something. Well, on that dumpster, I don't know, I'm not sure.
No, I'm good. Sorry.
Here's what I had requested was that during your update, Jim, next week,
Okay,
if we could have 5 minutes on water, 5 on sewer, with how those programs are going, like the West End water tank and whatever else, and then 10 minutes or so on the trash dumpster issue to see if we really should change the ordinance or if maybe we can just get that property owner to put their dumpster somewhere else.
okay. I think we can handle what you need under my time, that's fine. And just so council knows right now, I already did a preliminary check with Dave. we were doing pretty good financially for the month of April. They're finishing up the reports, and we should have them in the next week or so. And our actual loss of revenue is not that bad for April.
Yeah, so
Okay.
May might be a different story.
Yes, yep, you're correct. May, June, July.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mavromatis. We'll now move on to our Law Director, Mr. Mastros.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mastros. Signing in this evening under miscellaneous, we have Mr. Petrella.
Yes, Your Honor. I used one of my bulk pickups for this year, and when I called down there, they provided me with a 4-yard dumpster, which I thought was a good idea on Bob's part to do that, and it worked out really well because I put everything I needed into the dumpster and maybe a couple big items on the side of it. And this will help our workers also, especially when it comes to workman's comp and that. They just come up, take the dumpster and dump it, and it relieves our workers from handling all the big bulk items during that. I just want to make council aware of that, and I thought it was a very good idea. That's it for tonight.
Yes. Very good idea, I agree. We also have signing in this evening is Mrs. Hahn.
Yeah, I just had two things I wanted to mention. One of them is Nicole Balakis, who's our Jefferson County Health Commissioner, is having her next conference call tomorrow from noon to 1. And I don't know if anyone on council has a commitment where you aren't free, but if you have any questions that you really would like asked, if you want to call me or email me, I would really be happy to be able to present those to her. They're very comprehensive in the paperwork that they've been sending out, guidelines for various kinds of businesses adjusted for those particular businesses, and other kinds of updates, but then she also just takes questions. And if you are free, I would highly recommend getting online and hearing the report. I think it's very, very helpful. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was just a word of gratitude. I had an opportunity to be a part of the task force that Bishop Monforton put together relative to the Catholic churches in our particular diocese, which goes much broader than just Steubenville. And he has made the announcement that daily masses are going to resume on May 18, and then we should be having full slate of Sunday masses starting the weekend of Memorial Day. And there are many guidelines. It's a very thorough presentation to the various pastors, and then they'll figure out the ramifications for their particular congregation, but they will be able to be at 50% capacity. And I just wanted to say a particular word about our governor. Unlike a few other states, our governor has been very careful to not tread on constitutional rights. And so instead of dictating to churches what they had to do in the state, what he did was he offered them guidelines, and he said, you know, we really need you to take this seriously, but he didn't dictate things. And it gave pastors, whether they were, you know, Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, or other religious leaders, it really gave them the freedom to take the responsibility on themselves for their people and their community. And I am very grateful for his leadership at every level, including really respecting the rights of religion. And so anyway, I'm pleased to make that announcement and honored that I had an opportunity to be a part of that task force. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Hahn. We do not have anyone signing in under public forum this evening, so I'll call on Mr. Paul.
Yes, Your Honor. If there's no further business before this council, I'll make the motion we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that tonight's council meeting be adjourned by roll call.
Mr. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Petrella?
Aye.
Mr. Timmons?
Aye.
Mr. Villamagna?
Aye.
Mrs. Onyebuile?
Yes.
Mr. Dressel?
Aye.
Mrs. Hahn?
Aye.
So moved. Council meeting this evening is adjourned.